Please be seated. The court is now back in session. And I'd like to hand the floor again to the defense counsel for Nuon Chea to put further questions to the witness.
Yes, Mr. Witness. Let's see if you can sabotage this one as well. I would like you to go to number 13 in your binder.
International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. President. I just object to this continual commentary from counsel attacking the witness. He should ask his questions, let the witness answer and respond, rather than providing commentary continuously on the witness's testimony.
I withdraw, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, like I said...
Yes, that is correct. And defense counsel, please prepare your questions appropriately, and please also behave appropriately in the courtroom. And you should stick to the practices before the chamber.
Well, sabotaging with your assistance, if I might add, Mr. President.
Counselor, just stop it.
No.
Doesn't get any
no,
better.
No, I won't stop it. It's a travesty here. It's incredible. But, Mr. Witness, let me indeed move on. Let me see if you know something about events in the Northwest Zone. E3/4202. That is document 1313 in your binder. English ERN 00757531, Khmer 00858339, and French 00849435. And it's an excerpt from the book of Tet Sambat, and relates the testimony of a cadre called In Tun from Pursat. Mr. Witness, did you find this quote, number 13?
Yes, I see it.
Now I will read it slowly, and please read along with me. Can you do that for me? Here we go. Surviving Khmer Rouge cadre said there was indeed a plot to overthrow Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, and the rest of the leadership. In Tun of Pursat province said there was a plan in 1976 to stage a coup that would be led by the northwest and eastern zones. He said cadre in those areas frequently had meetings in Sedao commune. The plan called for the northwest zone cadre to capture Battambang province, followed by Pursat province, Kampong Chnang province, and then Phnom Penh. At the same time, the eastern zone would attack from the areas east of the capital. Quote, everyone knew about the plot to overthrow Pol Pot's leadership, end of quote, In Tun said. So, Mr. Witness, were you able to follow?
Yes, I followed you, and I listened to the passage, and I also follow it on the document before me.
Does that somehow jog your memory?
I swore before this chamber to tell the truth, and the truth that I would like to say now is that I never heard of this plan before.
So you knew nothing about preparations for rebellion or coup d'etat coming from the northwest zone? Is that correct?
No, I did not know anything about that.
Let me read another excerpt from that same book with all kinds of other details in it. Maybe that will jog your memory. It's again still E3/4202 and still number 13, but the second quote. English ERN 007575532, Khmer 00858342, French 00849437. And this is the testimony of someone called Chan Savut. And the excerpt goes as follows. Chan Savut, head of the hospital in his region in Battambang, said in an interview that in one of the meetings he attended in Sedao to overthrow Pol Pot, Runim said secrecy was mandatory because anyone who was found to be part of the plot would surely be killed. Savut said that after receiving instructions from Runim, he ordered 70 of his men to transfer medicine and medical equipment to store at his division headquarters. Asked by his men the reason for the move, he lied and said they were preparing to make war with Thailand. Rice was also kept in rice mills, and gasoline was hidden throughout Battambang and Banti and Manchi province. They planned to destroy bridges across the Sangke River in Battambang to control the west side, where they had stored equipment, food, and other materials. This plan was very big and important, and if we won, things would be good again. A little down, following actually, we were encouraged because some center members from Phnom Penh, like Vorn Vet, supported this plot, and we had So Pim in the eastern zone. Runim instructed Chil Chun, a division commander, to contact Thai communists who would store rice, dry fish, and weapons for them until they staged their attack. They transported the goods to Thailand at night. I was very sorry our plan was not successful, Chil Soon said in an interview. When I was detained in a re-education camp, I wished that we had attacked first. I would have rather died in battle implementing this plan than stay in the camp. End of quote. Mr. Witness, other details in relation to plans from the Northwest Zone contemplating a coup d'etat and attacks. Does that somehow jog your memory?
What I would like to say is that I did not know anything at all about this plan.
Let me then finalize this subject with asking you two remaining questions on Prime Minister Hun Sen's involvement. Do you know when it was he left for Vietnam?
I am still studying the background of Hun Sen, and as I stated earlier, I heard of Hun Sen's name after 7 January 1979, that he was a Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time.
Well, let me help you. He defected to Vietnam in June 77. Right after the arrests of 310 combatants. Did you know that Hun Sen went back from Vietnam in December 77 in tanks, Vietnamese tanks, together with other revolutionaries who had defected? Did you know that? More specifically, he sat in a Vietnamese tank on the 22nd of December 1977. Have you ever heard that?
International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd simply ask that if counsel is going to confront the witness with some evidence, if he could cite that evidence for the court so we can look at it ourselves.
I thought I first have to ask an open question.
The witness clearly states that he heard of Hun Sen's name after 7 January 1979. Then you made mentions of a fact that happened before he came to know Hun Sen's name. And you asked about Hun Sen's activity prior to 1979, that is, before he came to know Hun Sen's name. So please state your intention as to why you put the fact before this witness came to know about Hun Sen's name.
Well, it wasn't only Hun Sen who was in the tank, but let me assist the prosecution, Mr. President, by reading the evidence to the parties. I am referring to Ben Keenan's book, E3/1593, English ERN 011509194, Khmer 00637921, French 0063915455. So this is describing the situation in 1977. As fighting continued over the next several months, Hanoi prepared for a major incursion in December that would involve 30 to 60,000 troops with air, armor, and artillery support. Nil Saun, who was working in the fields near PAUK's headquarters at Kandol Chrum, recalls how the offensive began. Quote, on 22 December, 2 Vietnamese tanks drove into Kandal Chrum township in an attempt to contact Sao Pim. Then they turned back towards the border. End of quote. Inside the tank, it appears, were several Khmer revolutionaries who had previously fled to Vietnam. Hun Sen, Hem, H-E-M, Samin, S-A-M-I-N, and 8 others accompanied the Vietnamese forces on missions across different sections of the border. End of quote. So, Mr. Witness, let me move away from Hun Sen, but let me ask you the question in general. Are you aware of combatants such as Hem Samin, Hun Sen, who had left for Vietnam in 1977, returning in December with Vietnamese forces? So I'm not talking about December 1978, I'm talking about December 1977.
No, I was not aware of that event.
My final point on this, and then I will move on. I'm referring to the interview that not Hem Samin, but Heng Samrin gave to Ben Kiernan, E3/1568, English ERN 00651889, Khmer 00713962, French 00743361, and you have it in your binder, Mr. Witness. It's 11, number 11. So it's 2 quotes, but let me move on directly to the second orange quote. And he says that in 1976-77, quote, "We had a struggle, but a secret one. But at that time it was tight and crammed. There was no opportunity to rise up and struggle. Even Tapim had to struggle. He used to say, we will have further bloodshed, but there was no opportunity. The opportunity for us to struggle came when they saw us change to some extent. So they made a coup first in order to unclear us." So, Mr. Witness, have you ever heard of what Heng Samrin calls a secret struggle in 76-77?
No, I did not.
Have you ever heard that the CPK in fact consisted not of one faction but of rather 3 factions?
In relation to the confessions at S21, it made mention of this matter, but if I use the content of the confessions, I believe it violates the principle here. President, you cannot use the content of those confessions. You should respond based on your personal knowledge and experience that you obtained during the regime. And the Chamber reminds all the parties and the witness not to refer to content of confessions obtained at S21 or at any other security centers. Even an excerpt of a passage quoted from the confessions is prohibited.
So then let me move to an excerpt from a witness, someone who was interviewed by the International Co-Investigating Judge. That is in your binder number 9. That's document E3/9579. It's a written record of interview of 3 September 2013. And in question and answer 13, this cadre, who was a transport and cooperative worker, according to my observations, the Khmer Rouge was apparently composed of 3 or 4 groups. The first group was the Viet Minh. The second group was the nationalistic Khmer Rouge. The third was the Sihanouk Khmer Rouge. And the fourth group was the Khmer Rouge from China, including Pol Pot. End of quote. So outside of your knowledge derived from confession, is that something that this transport cooperative worker seems to know? Is that something that you knew too?
Before 1954, Khmer was divided into 4 Isara groups. One was Sơn Ngọc Thanh, then Sơn Ngọc Minh, and the third was Dap Chun. Rather, there were only 3 groups. Later on, after 20 July Geneva Conventions, they were all dissolved. And later on, a party was brought by the Americans to South Vietnam. And I made that statement before, and it is part of the case file in case 001. And that is based on the historical event and not relied on any confession. But I do not know about the factions that you just referred to.
So you cannot confirm this evidence of this relatively low cadre, the transport and cooperative worker. You cannot confirm that?
No, I do not know about that.
Well, let me then turn to knowledge of the highest organ within the Chinese Communist Party. The Standing Committee of the Communist Party of China, and within this even higher, the Military Commission. Have a look, Mr. Witness, at document 14 in your binder. It's a report of the chief of the Military Commission within the Politburo of the Central Committee, so the number 2 or 3 of China. And he was addressing his fellow members in the Standing Committee on the 16th of January 1979. Or maybe a bit before. He talks also about the CPK.
President, Council, could you provide the reasons for the relevancy of your question in relation to the facts that happened in China to our current proceedings?
Well, Geng Biao, the chief of the Military Commission, is reporting about the situation in Cambodia, in Democratic Kampuchea. It is right after the Vietnamese invasion. And he talks about the Vietnamese invasion And then in E3/7325, English ERN 0100162, Khmer only 01063,797. He said 3 main factions were formed at that time. First faction, composed of Cambodian workers and peasants and under the direct control of Pol Pot and Khieu Samphan, was the majority and the main force of the Liberation Army. The second faction consisted of the royal forces, faithful to Sihanouk, and old patriotic officers and men from Lon Nol's troops, who turned against Lon Nol and joined the Liberation War. Members of this faction were not many, but all of them were well-trained allies of the Communist Party and sympathizers of the revolutionary cause. The third faction was the well-equipped pro-Vietnam group, consisting of quite a few members. Mr. Witness, China in January 79 seems to know about the existence of 3 main factions within the CPK. A very low-ranking transport and cooperative worker seems to talk about 3 factions. Why is it that you do not know anything about this?
International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Again, counsel is entitled to try to refresh his memory. He's not entitled to argue with the witness to assert that these other sources are credible and therefore the witness doesn't know anything if he hasn't heard this. It's simply inappropriate. I won't comment further because I know you don't want to hear submissions from me.
I will rephrase the question, Mr. Witness. Does this refresh your memory? The view of the Chinese Standing Committee, the Standing Committee of the Chinese Communist Party? Does it somehow jog your memory?
Allow me to speak from my recollection of Kang Piu. Pol Pot arrived in China on the 30th of September 77, and I saw a movie of his visit to China. Kang Piu sent a welcoming card to Pol Pot from the Communist Party of China, but I did not know anything about the opinion of Kang Piu and whether that opinion was consistent with the situation on the ground. I knew only of a certain, I only had certain knowledge regarding what happens on the ground, but not everything else.
Fine, Mr. Witness. Let me read some excerpts from your own statements. With your leave, Mr. President, I would like to give excerpts from Duik's own testimony so that he can read along.
Yes, you may proceed.
I will start with E3/359, English ERN 00434-345, Khmer 00408-232, French 00408-247. It is document 4 in your binder. Mr. Witness, these are your responses to additional questions from the investigating judge. Let me read to you what the highlighted excerpt. It says, anything involving Vietnam had to be noted. I remember that I reported that Son Sen had observed the attitude of Coi Thun toward the Vietnamese delegations that came to visit the liberated zone prior to 75. End of quote. Do you remember writing this, Mr. Witness?
That is the opinion raised by Son Sen so that I could understand about the relationship between Coi Thun and Vietnamese cadres. At that time, Vietnam did not defeat the American troops yet. One day there was a Vietnamese delegation and the head was part of the front. Son Sen made an observation of the relationship between Coi Thun and the delegations and that they were so close to one another. And he made mention that to me. And that was his instruction to Dutch, that is to me.
And do you know whether after 75 Coi Thun had... what kind of relations did Coi Thun have after 1975 with Vietnam?
No, I did not know anything further. However, I know that Coi Thun was in troubles with women and with how he spent his life.
Do you know who Mao Sai is? M-A-O-S-A-Y.
Mao Sai was a person working in the Sihanouk regime. He was older than the late king. And at the time, he was working close to the king.
Did Coi Thun have a relation with this person?
No document proves about that. No information was learned by me from a document.
Okay, I will be reading now a few excerpts, and I'm just going to ask you whether this is correct, yes or no, just like I did with your testimony about Hor. So, Mr. Witness, please go to excerpt number 5 in... no, not the green binder, the new... So that's the new folder that I gave you. Yes, that's it. Please pick out number 5. Mr. President, that is E3/429, English ERN 00403926, Khmer 00403914, French 00403938. You say, once again, I would say there was not a clearly established policy. You're talking about the Vietnamese. And they were only arrested if they committed errors. In fact, one must recall that there were practically no more Vietnamese in Cambodia. Did you say that, Mr. Witness? Is that correct?
In relation to Vietnamese in Cambodia, I spoke about that the previous day. After the 17th April, there were very few Vietnamese in Cambodia. And later on, no Vietnamese was within the country. However, there was a Vietnamese woman, the mother of my friend, survived the regime, and the son of that woman fled into the forest and later on got a malaria, and he died. That person was working in the Sihanouk regime.
But just to be sure, what I just read to you, back from your own evidence, that is correct, isn't it?
There is no timeline in the statement you quoted. That's why I made mention about it. I would say there was not a clearly established policy and that they were only arrested if they committed errors. What is the timeline? Nothing was mentioned about the timeline. That's why I explained it to you a while ago.
Okay, let me move on to the next quote from your testimony. That's number 6, Mr. Witness. Mr. President, E3/429, English 00403-925, Khmer 00403-913, French 00403-937. From the moment I was appointed head of S21, I never noticed any arrest of a member of the Cham group. Correct?
The interpreter did not hear the first part of the testimony. And no one were arrested as that they were Cham and sent to S21. No man was a Cham. He was engaged in the revolution. And later on, he was arrested at the field, rice field, and sent to Phnom Penh, then smashed. No, there was no policy to exterminate Cham people. And if a Cham committed a mistake, he or she would be arrested. And that happened to the case of Man, Song Man, alias Man.
Let me move to quote numbers for you, number 7, E3/429, English ERN 00403920, Khmer 004033909, French 004033932. Number 7, Mr. Witness, I would like to reiterate that I never saw a clear decision indicating that Lon Nol soldiers were to be killed. End of quote. Correct?
President, please hold on and observe the microphone. Look, witness. Now I would like to read again. I would like to read the Khmer version. First of all, I would like to reiterate that I never saw a clear decision saying that all Lon Nol soldiers were to be killed.
Following up on this, please go to quote 8, Mr. Witness. That is E3/10586 10586, English ERN 00326 Khmer 00320751-52, French 00326770. In S21,
President, please wait. You have the floor now, International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
I'm sorry, could you simply repeat the E3 number? It came by a little fast.
E3/10586. And the quote reads, in S21, there was no single general of Lon Nol. There was not a single minister of Lon Nol. There was not a single singer or royal member who arrived in S21. A number of military officials and government officers of Lon Nol were smashed in Phnom Penh in the rural areas. But it is the first part. There was no single general of Lon Nol. There was not a single minister of Lon Nol. Not a single singer or royal member. Is that a correct quote, Mr. Witness?
I have not found yet the specific page with the ERN you mentioned. Could you repeat ERN in Khmer once again?
Yes, it's for you. It's number 8, and the Khmer ERN is 00320751. So your quote number 8.
Could you read it again?
There was no single general of Lon Nol. There was not a single minister of Lon Nol. There was not a single singer or royal member who arrived in S21. Correct?
At S21, there was no single general of Lon Nol. There was not a single minister of Lon Nol. There was not a single singer or royal member who came to S21. That is correct.
Thank you. Let me move on to the 9th quote, E3/5789, number 9, Mr. Witness. English ERN 00414333, Khmer 00410171 till 172. Don't seem to have a French. In this quote you say, I was not aware of any forced marriages. Correct? And in the next page, I never saw any document from the party on this matter. Once again, I saw no evidence that a countrywide policy was being applied in that regard. Correct?
No forced marriage. That is what I have known.
French ERN 00413957 till 8. So, Mr. Witness, summarizing,
I have not found it yet, Counsel, the sentence you quoted.
It's on number 9, your excerpt number 9, Khmer 0041 0171 till 72. I'll read it again. I was not aware of any forced marriages. Personally, I never saw any document from the party on this matter. Once again, I saw no evidence that a countrywide policy was being applied in that regard. End of quote.
These are my statements I gave to the co-investigating judges back then.
So when I summarize, you are unaware of a policy to target Vietnamese citizens. You're unaware of a policy to target Lon Nol soldiers. You're unaware of a policy to target or exterminate the Cham. You're unaware of any policy in relation to forced marriage, correct?
Yes, Mr. President. My objection to the question is counsel is misstating the excerpt he read relating to Lon Nol. The Lon Nol excerpt says he didn't see any document. In the next sentence, he says the Lon Nol soldiers were systematically eliminated. He was saying he didn't see any document or order. That's all he was saying.
He literally says, I would like to reiterate that I never saw a clear decision indicating that Lon Nol soldiers were to be killed.
And the next sentence says what?
Yeah, that's about implementation. That is what the prosecution is arguing. But my question is about policy, about documents, about decisions. Is my summary correct? No policy or decision to kill Lon Nol soldiers because they were Lon Nol soldiers? No decision or policy to kill Vietnamese because they were Vietnamese? No decision or policy to kill Cham because they were Cham? And no decision or policy to force people to marry, correct?
Correct. There were no documents stating about party lines at the time mentioning about these.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Let me move on to another subject, completely unrelated. It is number 10. It is a quote from you. It's E3/9362, English ERN 00791990, Khmer 00787946, French 00792707. It's something I think you wrote, Mr. Witt.
President, again, please repeat the identity number of the document together with the EON number in 3 languages. The interpreter did not follow.
For the interpreters, it's document 10, E3/9362, English 00791990, Khmer 00787946, French 00792707. You're talking about the history, what happened in the 60s, and you say the following, you refer to a coup d'etat in Indonesia. You said the war in Vietnam was escalating, the coup d'etat in Indonesia was killing people. Can you explain what you meant with the words the coup d'etat in Indonesia was killing people?
Let me inform the court that I have written about the lesson learned or experience of the previous generations. That was the thesis that I wrote. The situation erupted in Indonesia that happened in perhaps in 1966. Let me summarize it. At that time, Suharto destroyed the Indonesian organs, and all IDID members were smashed. Sukarno was arrested, and Bong Ryo was arrested and sentenced. I wrote these matters in my thesis. Khmer Rouge at the time learned about the situation in Indonesia, and Khmer Rouge thought that the coup d'etat, the American would interfere in Cambodia, and that situation may happen in Cambodia as well. I did not mention how many Indonesians died during that particular situation. Yes, I did make a mention about the matter that happened in Indonesia among Khmer Rouge.
Well, about 500,000 to 1 million were executed within a year by Indonesia together or with the help of the Americans. But why I'm asking this question, you mentioned already part of what I would like to hear, is that what happened in 1965 in Indonesia had a profound effect on the CPK, and more particularly on the so-called principle of secrecy. Do you know whether the events in 65 were the basis or the source for the principle of secrecy that you referred to so many times also yesterday? Do you know whether these two, in your recollection, are somehow connected? What Alexander Hinton calls political genocide in 65 on the one hand, and the principle of secrecy that you applied at S21 on the other hand.
This is a confusing question. First, I would like to make a correction in relation to the figure of Indonesian died in 1965. To my recollection, 2 million Indonesian died in the period. And recently, I have heard that 500,000 of Indonesians died instead. The coup d'etat in Indonesia, what were communists in Cambodia thinking at the time? And I made a mention about the coup d'etat in Indonesia to Khmer Rouge. The coup d'etat in Indonesia was engaged by Americans to topple the organs, the 3 organs in Indonesia. That situation was learned by Khmer Rouge at the time, and I was thinking, and together with others, were thinking that the situation may happen in Cambodia.
I understand, but the principle of secrecy that you applied at S21, do you know whether that same principle also functioned since the start of the revolution in 1968? In other words, do you know from your own experience or recollection whether 65 Indonesia was one of the main sources or reasons for the principle of secrecy.
The situation happened in Indonesia, and it had impacts on the communist thinking at the time. They were thinking that the American would come to engage in Cambodia, and the secretary was that if the information leaked, we would die. So in 1960s, there were 4 principles in relation to secrecy: do not know, do not say, do not hear, and do not see. So the way the NASACOM workings and the way Cambodian communists working is different from one another.
Let's move to the next subject, quote 11. Mr. Witness, we're now moving to S21 again. E3/5748, English ERN 00153568, Khmer 00153460, French 00153446. There's a question from the investigating judge. He says, how was the departure of detained persons organized in practice when they were taken to Chiang Ek to be executed? Answer, I have no idea. I was never present. Im Hui and the other members of the special unit could provide you with this type of explanation. Correct?
That is my answer.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Please move to quote 12, E3/1578, English ERN 00194549, Khmer 00178024, French 00178036. Quote 12. I am not in a position to tell you whether people were transferred directly from Presar to Chiang Ek. Correct?
This, I have to explain one particular matter on this issue. I answered the question put by the co-investigating judges at the time.
Let me move to quote 13, E3/1578, English 00194552, Khmer 00178027, French 00178040. This is your answer, Mr. Witness, about the alleged killing of children, 160 children to be precise. You said, I read this document again. This document demonstrates clearly that 17 persons were transferred from Presar to Chiang Ek at that time. Thus, this fact seems to be established. I was not personally aware of it. Correct? You weren't aware of that fact at the time?
I have not found the passage you read. Which ER number you are referring to?
It's your excerpt number 13.
បន្តទីប្រមាណ
Which line?
It's underlined in green. You're talking about this document on 160 children. My question is, you were not personally aware of that, correct?
I would like to read the statement that I gave last time. I would like to go back to what I said this morning regarding the persons who were transferred directly from Presaw to Chiang Mai for execution. I read document with your number 00006728 again, which demonstrates clearly that 17 persons were transferred from Presaw to Chiang Mai at the time. Thus, this fact seems to be established. I was not personally aware of it. This document says 17 persons, not 160 children.
It is too complicated. Mr. President, in light of the time, we have calculated that because of your questions Monday morning, which took from 9 o'clock till 9:45, the defense is entitled to 45 minutes. I should be able, if the witness is cooperating, to finish my questions in 45 minutes on Monday morning. So my request is to be able to fully use the time allotted to the defense.
President, do any other parties have any observation on the request for additional time? The request made by the Nunchia defense team. Do you have any observation on the additional time requested by Nunchia defense team?
Just for the record, it's not additional time. It's the time for us to arrive exactly at the 4 days that the prosecution had, 4 days and 1 hour and a half. So with the 45 minutes on Monday, we are exactly equal with the prosecution.
Je voulais simplement indiquer.
I would like to inform the chamber that indeed I wish to inform the chamber that it tallies with the calculations I indicated yesterday when I took the floor and said that we would add the 45 minutes that the chamber had used at the beginning of my colleague's examination.
Thank you, Mr. President. I haven't added the numbers up myself, but I trust counsel can do that correctly and leave it to you to decide how best we handle the additional 45 minutes.
President, thank you for the observations by the parties. Of course, the chamber used 45 minutes last Friday. So the hearings to hear the hearing concerning testimony of Kangge Yao Losdut will continue into Monday for 45 minutes. It is now time for the adjournment, and the chamber will resume its hearing on Monday, 27 June 2016. And on Monday, the chamber will continue hearing the testimony of Kang Gek Il alias Dut, and then proceed to hear two TCW 236 said the President. Please be informed and please be on time. I'm grateful to you, Mr. Kang Gek Il. The hearing of your testimony has not come to an end yet. You are therefore invited to come and testify once again next Monday, and it will not last long. The hearing perhaps will last only 45 minutes or a little bit more than that. Security personnel are instructed to bring the two accused and the witness back to the ECCC detention facility and have them returned into the courtroom on Monday before 9 a.m. and at 9 a.m. respectively. The court is now adjourned.